Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our Coffee with the Counselor. This month's session is about suicide prevention. What you're going to be seeing is very similar to what your child will be seeing in next week's session. So yeah, let's begin. Most of us have probably witnessed changes in our adolescence. Many of these changes can be positive and good and wonderful, and some are extremely difficult for them. Some of these changes include physical changes, the way they look, weight gain, weight loss. There's social changes, social groups. Who are their friends? Who are they hanging out with? Have they lost friends? Have they gained good influential friends or negative influential? Cognitive changes that involves the way they process, the way they think. There's also the emotional change, the way they process their emotions, the way they cope. It is very important to remember that each child copes differently and handles all these changes differently. So it's very important to never compare your child to their friends. If you have friends over and you notice that your child is coping differently than their friend, never compare them, never talk to them in comparison. And if you're wondering how to know if your child is dealing with one of these changes in a positive way or if they're just being too moody, or how to know if someone is really struggling and they need help, there is mood versus depression. Some things to look at are a person with depression may look normal on the outside, you may not be able to tell, but in the inside they're overwhelmed and stressed and nervous and exhausted, don't have any friends, but they're putting on a positive image. 3 things to consider when you're assessing your child's moods is the severity of all of their outbursts and their moods. So are they crying? How often are they crying? Does it last long? The second thing is duration. How long does the mood last? So is this going on every day, constantly for a week, constantly for 2-3 weeks? Or is it one day and then the next day she's fine, and then she's fine for the rest of the week? The third one is the different areas of life. So there's home versus school. At school, you might be hearing that she's fine, that she's hanging out with her friends, happy, and then she gets home and she just wants to be in her room, doesn't want to engage with parents, with siblings. That's something to look at with depression, and maybe they are suffering from mood disorders. With depression, you can lead into suicide. Depression is a mental illness, which then can cause suicide. Suicide, by definition, is the act of killing oneself, most often as a result of depression or other mental illnesses. So it is important to know that there is no actual cause to suicide. It really occurs when one person cannot handle a huge amount of stress, and this is what they look into. They look into harming themselves and into other ways of coping.
I have a question.
Yes.
Would bipolar be a mental illness that would lead to depression? Could lead to depression? I mean, suicide?
Yeah, so bipolar is when a person has different personalities, so they can be happy and sad and angry and sad and angry and happy. This is a mental illness, so then you can always seek a counselor or seek an outside resource to get your child some help. Or if you have questions, you can always pop in, talk to a counselor, tell a counselor that you have red flags for your child, and we can keep an eye out and create a team at school to help that child. So youth suicide statistics. Many of you guys may not know, but suicide is the second leading cause of death for children ages 10 to 24. So each day in our nation, there's an average of 3,470 attempted suicides, and that's only counting grades 9 through 12. If we apply our 7th and 8th graders, that attempted rate would be much, much higher. We are seeing it more common in 7th and 8th grade now, which wasn't happening decades ago. It's also important to know that 4 out of 5 teens who attempt suicide have given some sort of warning. And these warnings look different. A warning sign is an indication that they're struggling. It can be verbal, they can be physically giving signs, and this is all a sign that they're experiencing depression or any thought of suicide. So what do these warning signs look like? Some people have negative views of themselves. It's also important to remember that all of the signs are different. Not everyone will have the same signs. A negative view of themselves: I'm ugly, I'm fat, I don't feel pretty, my friends are prettier than I am. Making suicide threats. one huge thing with our century is all of our kids have access to social media, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. So they can be writing, I want to kill myself, life is not worth living. Just monitor your child's Instagram, social media, and keep an eye out for things like that. Substance abuse, your child may begin drinking, sneaking alcohol from your alcohol at home, buying it underage, drugs. They begin giving away things. They don't see a purpose for it anymore. Engaging in risky behavior, joyrides, drinking and driving, even though they're not old enough. Self-harm, one of the biggest examples is self-cutting, typically on the arms, the stomach area, the legs, places where it won't be seen. They frequently talk about death. They don't see death as a big deal. It's just like, oh, I'm just gonna go die. I wanna die. It's better if I die. Feeling like a burden to others is huge. They just feel like they're always in the way. And then isolation or feeling alone. A lot of times, people with suicidal thoughts will push away all their friends and isolate themselves. So if you start noticing that they never talk with friends, or friends at school contact you and say like, Xavier pushed me away, like we are no longer friends, or I always see Xavier by himself, things like that, you can always reach out to a counselor. So some of these warning signs, some are immediate risk and some have serious risks. With the immediate risk, if they're talking about wanting to die or planning their own death or looking up ways to kill themselves, such as, what is the easiest way to die? Look at their search history on their internet, on their laptops. That's important. If you find plans, notes, anywhere around the house, that is an immediate red flag, and you can even call 911 if you feel that your child is at danger. Serious risks, the use of alcohol, recklessness, sleeping a little bit or sleeping too much. If you notice signs of depression, that is a serious risk. You can always contact lines for help, for advice, things like that. Talking to your child, how to talk. Always ask open-ended questions instead of saying like, did you have a good day at school? That's closed-ended. They're just gonna tell you yes. Ask, what was fun about school? And they'll give you more to talk about. Another thing, don't rush to solve their problems. If a child is telling you, I'm in a big fight with my friend Claire, instead of saying like, oh, well, tell Claire this, you say, well, what can I do to help you? Or what can we do to find a solution? So talk those problems out with your child. Make sure to be available and let your child know that you are available. Many times children think you're too busy or they don't want to talk to you. You can always just say, hey, if you want to talk, I'll be at my desk. Or hey, if you want to if you want to talk, I'll be in the kitchen. And that way they know that you're available and you will talk to them. Yes?
What if they don't want to talk?
You let them come to you. If not, you can always reach out to a counselor or drop hints like, yo, have you talked to friends? Like, what's going on? Just keep trying, but don't push them to the point where they just close off. Try talking in the car. Eye contact is a lot. They might feel discouraged or embarrassed. So in the car, if you notice you're just always looking forward out the window, that's a good time to bring up a point or a situation or how they're feeling or how they're acting. Let's see. Getting help, here are some resources. The National Suicide Prevention Line is a good contact line 24/7. You can contact that number. At our school, we have Text a Tip. So it's an anonymous phone line. You text it, you can text a tip. For example, my child is struggling, I notice moods. The counselor will know who it is. They will reach out to the child. If your neighbor is having an underage drinking party, you can text a tip and the cops will show up to that underage drinking party. If you don't have the number, you can take out your phones now and just jot it down. It's also going to be at the handouts when you walk out the door. These are just some helpful websites you guys can access. I'm also going to be emailing this presentation to all the parents so you guys have all these resources.
I have a question.
Yes.
Is the text-to-tip just for parents or?
No, the text-a-tip.
use it?
Good question. The text-a-tip is also for all the kids at school. So this number is available in all the classrooms, and it's always being talked about in sessions. Lastly, this is the video, just a short clip of what your child will be watching in class. It doesn't go through all the scenarios, but your child will be going through all the scenarios that are talked about. Seriously. Sorry about that.
I've been talking about her behind her back. I just feel all alone. Everyone and everything is annoying me. I'm failing all my stupid classes. All I do is argue with my parents. I hate my life, and nothing's gonna change. It's bad enough they bother me online all the time. It's getting really bad. I'd rather be dead than put up with this in person too.
The point of this video is to learn what to do. Hey, I'm Mark, and I'm a high school student. Today, I'm going to help you learn about suicide prevention.
I think one of the biggest things about depression is that on the outside and at school, she might be just walking in the hallways, but on the inside, all these things are going through her that you can't see at all on the outside. When you're worried, when do you tell someone? I would tell as soon as something's wrong. I wouldn't wait. Well, what if you tell an adult but they don't take you seriously? You just go to the next adult. You just keep trying until you get your point across.
Doesn't talking about depression only make it worse?
No, talking about depression doesn't make it worse. It actually makes it much better because you're getting help, you're reaching out to people, and it helps you to understand your feelings and what's going on.
I saw some of the things that were saying about you. It's not okay. I'm going to say something to Mr. Michaels.
I don't want to talk about it. Well, if you don't, I will. Look, it'll be okay. I'll be there with you.
Maybe it would help to go talk to somebody, like Mr. Hall, for example. He said his doors are always open if you ever want to talk to him. I'll go with you.
We all have to look.
So that's something your child will be watching. They'll go through every scenario with them. Just ways for them to be able to look out for warning signs, who to contact, how to contact people, and know that there are always resources available for them and they can always be there for a friend. Do we have any questions? I'll be around at the end, so if you guys want to come up and talk, or if you guys have any questions ever, I do have an open door policy. Feel free to pop in whenever you'd like. Go into the front office, check in, and I'm always available.
I have a
Thank you.
question.
Yes.
If our child comes to the counselor at school and you see signs of depression or suicide, do you let the parents know, or is that kept confidential?
It depends. If they are trying to hurt themselves, that is not kept confidential. But if we are treating them, at some point we do have to get parent consent because they are minors. But for the most part, it will be confidential if they don't want it to be talked about. Perfect. Thank you guys so much.